Okay. Uh, Hello and welcome to this special event for the 2021 Women's Day. And as part of this Women's Day celebration, we are really happy to have one of our distinguished alumna, Dr. Deepti Ghadiyaram. Uh, we will have a chat regarding her experiences in IIIT and beyond that, after that. So, Dr. Deepti, she graduated from IIIT Hyderabad with a BTech in computer science in 2009, and after that, she went for her PhD at UT Austin and finished her thesis defense in 2017. And since then, she has been a research scientist at Facebook AI Research from that point. So she works on a variety of different problems in AI, very interesting problems related to AI and specifically fairness in AI systems that are built by these companies. So she's a very accomplished researcher and has published papers in the top level conferences and journals in the area. So I'm really happy to have Deepti with us. Welcome, Deepti.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Professor Anoop. Really excited to be here.
Okay. So let's just start by saying something about yourselves. What did you do after you finished your BTech in IIIT?
Sure. So during my stay in IIIT, I spent 2 years in CVIT. I worked closely with Professor PJN and Professor Jayanti. Um, so after that, once I graduated in 2009, I worked as a database engineer at a company called Capital IQ. Uh, but then I really wanted to get back to the problem space of image processing and computer vision. So I applied first for a master's program at UT Austin in 2011 and later converted to the PhD program. And once I finished uh, the graduate studies in 2017, I moved to Bay Area along with my husband and been at Facebook AI ever since.
Okay. So what motivated you to take up a PhD? You were in a master's program and you wanted to convert to a PhD. What triggered that thought or that motivation?
So I have a short and a long answer for it. The the short answer is I was really motivated to continue working in the space of image and video processing. The long answer is around um, it. So when I was at UT Austin as a master's program with an interest in research, as a master's student, there were little opportunities to do anything beyond coursework and course projects. And I was very much interested in my advisor, Professor Alan Bowick's research and the kind of work that lab does. So in as I was a master's student, in addition to the coursework and course projects, I took up a few side projects in the space that the research space that his lab focuses on. So I think around third in my third semester of masters, uh, Professor Bowick uh, offered a PhD position in his lab, and I was both very flattered and also shocked that he thought I had something in me to take up this direction. Um, to be honest, I was not confident enough, or I did not consider this as an option, despite having this constant interest in wanting to do something beyond just coursework and course projects. Um, I think part of the reason for this lack of confidence or lack of this idea that this is a good path for someone like me was I did not have enough women researchers as role models around me to relate this journey with someone. Um, but I was really interested and I was also scared. But the way that I convinced myself is that if let me try out this path for a year or two, and if I fail, then I think it's not the end of the world. I can I can find another path and I can figure something out. So I'm very glad now, 8 years later, that I actually took that leap and took that chance. Um, I know a lot of things may have changed in the past decade. So the reason for me to maybe choose a longer answer for this is this struggle was not something that only I went through. I know some of the other women in my batch and like a few other batches, both in Triple IT and at other places, struggled with this dilemma of, is this the right path for me? Am I good enough? Will I succeed? So sharing this um, so that if someone else is in the same dilemma, then they should know that they're not the only ones. There are a lot of us.
Good. So it's a very important point regarding the challenges, specifically the additional challenges that women face. But we'll come to that question in a minute.
Sure.
But before that, as just as a researcher, not specifically as a woman, uh, how do you look at PhD? When you started your PhD, how did you decide that you were going to work on a specific problem, or did you have a choice of problems for you to work on, the different problems that you worked on during your PhD, or how do you go about it?
So I think I formed a clarity on that even when I was at CVIT. So I think there we had an option of a breadth of different problem spaces. There is, I think, the course on computer graphics and projects around that offered by Professor PJN, and there's more fundamental like digital image processing course that was offered by Professor Jayanti, and and also computer vision course that was offered by Professor Jabbar. So I had an opportunity to take all of these three courses, and I was especially interested in digital image processing. I especially liked that more than like other courses. I enjoyed the fact that there is the input is something visual, and like I could write an algorithm and I could visualize the output, which at the time when I was, I think maybe in my second or third year, was an amazing experience. So it was very clear to me after I graduated that I am even between the no, computer vision, ML, and image processing. Image processing is something that I was interested in. Um, so UT Austin came as a consequence of this decision to pursue something at a more lower level and not as a mid-level computer vision problem. Uh, but within my lab at UT Austin, everyone works around problems which are more or less tied to a similar theme, which is perceptual quality assessment. So I think that broad problem statement was sort of given once I joined my lab.
Okay. But did you, the specific papers that you wrote or the specific problems that you chose, did
Mhm.
you have a hand in defining those problems, or it was mostly by your advisor?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I think when I was still a master's student and I was trying to do a couple of side projects with my research lab, one of the gaps that I had identified is most of the data sets or the models that were built in this space of perceptual quality assessment were on very synthetic or handcrafted images or distortions. And I was not sure if building models on such synthetic datasets would generalize to real world images or real world content that we see. So that was the question that I was especially interested in. That was a question that at the time uh, others in my neither other folks in my lab or others in this field were focusing on. I think identifying the gaps in the current literature paved way for what I ended up focusing on for the next 4 years. So we started off with image quality assessment for real world content. Um, and then followed it up with video quality assessment for real world videos and a lot of different flavors of problems associated with this broad theme.
Yeah, it's another very interesting point that even computer vision in general has graduated from these few sample images on which people used to show the results to actually working on real world images and problems, and that
Right.
is reflected in your current work at Facebook also. So, but again, we'll come back to that in a
Sure.
minute. Uh, so before that, sticking with your PhD time itself, can you give us some flavor of how the experience of PhD was with you, some highs and lows of your PhD, to for a person who is an aspiring researcher who wants to do this, to get a feel of how you went through that journey.
Yeah, definitely. I think I overall I absolutely loved the journey. It was definitely not easy, as I'm sure you know. It has a there's a lot of hard work, a lot of being okay with unaccepted papers or missed deadlines. But I
Right.
think I think eventually I built great relationships with my colleagues. Had a chance to collaborate with some amazing graduate students and professors, and also made great friends during the 6 years stay at in Austin. I think what what I got the most is it to me it was never about getting that degree. I enjoyed the whole process of how to approach a not well defined open ended problem, and how to actually break it down into something tangible and something that we can take steps towards solving. I think that is one of the biggest skills that I feel that I've achieved after going through this process for I think 4 or 5 years. Um, I think I also was able to learn some good number of skills. I had very severe stage fright, and it was very difficult for me to like get up on stage and present my work. But I had to get over it. There's tons of conferences that you attend that you end up presenting. Um, I also learned how to write technical papers and write them well so that you communicate at various levels of technical details to different kinds of audience, depending on who's consuming uh, your work. About low points, I would say I think it does get lonelier in this journey sometimes, especially if you are the only person who's working on this problem with a relatively hands-off advisor. And if you've been working on this for years without any positive results or positive outcomes or frequent rejections at conferences, the advice that I have there is I think at such low points, what helped me is to remember that I wasn't in this for this one paper or this one conference, but at a bigger picture, is here for the problem space. That's what brought me into this journey. So that I think it is important to remember that if someone feels lost.
That, that's a wonderful answer. A lot of stuff in it, and I was also really happy to see you present on behalf of Facebook on one of your keynote events, from a person who is stage shy myself, and I understand how you go through that process of going from the fear of speaking to others to be able to stand in front of the whole world and speak. Not that I have done it, but you have done it, and I'm really happy to see that. Uh,
Okay.
so, in that respect, can you also elaborate a little on for fellow women who want to pursue a career in research, who want to do a PhD, or in general want to pursue a career in research? What advice or pointers you have for them?
Uh, Definitely. I mean, it's one thing. I think it's fantastic that they do have that clarity that they are interested in. There is that interest in pursuing research. Um, I want to say that it's important to cut out the noise, be it external societal pressures or any other kinds of pressures, or internal, like an imposter syndrome, which is the voice, if it's coming from within yourself, that am I good enough? I think it's really important to just mute both external and internal noises and focus on the signal, which is your interest in pursuing research and what needs to be what needs to be done to make to take small steps towards that dream or that goal of yours. um, I think, and it's completely okay to fail. It doesn't, I think it teaches you something. So, but should definitely try first before assuming that maybe that path is not for them.
Okay, good. So it was nice. So let's move on a little bit further in your career. So how did you decide to pick up this particular job in Facebook? Was it kind of a natural outcome of what you were doing in your PhD, or was it a deliberate decision?
I think it was more deliberate. So at the time when I was in CVIT, the way it was clear to me that I wanted to maybe work on image processing. So 6 years at Austin um, made me decide I want some break from this problem domain and switch to a different domain, which is mid-level computer vision or more machine learning focused problems. Um, I was more also interested in having a real world impact or application of my work, which is something that I felt I wasn't able to achieve in those 5 years as a graduate student. So we were able to build good data sets, good models, got a good number of papers, but that is where the road ended. And I wanted to see if there is a next step that Facebook has to offer.
Mhm.
I think after all the interview preparations and getting an opportunity to have getting an offer from Facebook, I had a chance to talk to Manohar Paluri, who is a IIIT alumni and has been leading the computer vision org for several years now at Facebook. Um, Talking to him, it felt like that team offered me more freedom to pursue more exciting research problems, as well as seemed open to the intention of me wanting to switch domain. I did not have strong ML fundamentals back then because of the focus in my PhD program, and so it does make it tricky. But I think they were more than happy um, uh, to have me on board, and I've been very happy with that decision.
Okay, good. So once again, so you mentioned about your desire to work on problems which has a real world impact, and we also talked about in terms of computer vision how you wanted to move on from problems that work on simple images to those which actually work with real world images. So this seems to be kind of uh, a transition into solutions that actually work rather than just elegant solutions that are nice on paper. So can you, for the sake of common man, layman, explain what kind of work do you do? What are the kind of problems that you work on in Facebook, and what challenges do you face in at work related to this?
So I think this computer vision team that I'm part of works on just a variety of different problems, with all tied to a mission of building visual understanding for everyone. So building visual understanding systems for every user. Um, when I had joined, I started working on building a large scale video action recognition system with and one of the key applications that we wanted to see is just with the increased volume of videos on Facebook and Instagram, there was a good fraction of these videos which had objectionable content, and we wanted to uh, build an automated system that could take these videos down before they go into human review, where a human actually has to see them and mark them as not safe for consumption. Um, so this was the very first model that I had the opportunity to work. So we approached it as a fundamental research problem for an year, and once we were able to like write it up as an academic paper, we worked on deploying this in production and this hitting the real this Facebook traffic. So I think that opportunity was again something that I really enjoyed. So solving a problem in a pure academic setting and then seeing its real world application. So this has been the theme with other problems as well that I had worked on, say on representation learning or contextual bias. And over the past 1 year, I've shifted my focus towards um, building more fair and inclusive computer vision models. So it's great that the focus is on accuracy and building more efficient models, but I think um, the other axis that has been missing for the most part is, are we serving every slice of the society equally well? And if not, what should be the algorithms that we should design to make that happen? Um, Regards to challenges, I think it took a bit of time for me to adjust to the scale of Facebook. So moving away from, I worked on data sets which were barely a few thousand images when in my as a PhD student, and then the very first project was to train a model on at least 100 million videos. I just it yeah, I think the mental model had to be shifted. So it was a good challenge. So that
Even when you started the sentence, I was thinking of 100,000 videos, but it came out as 100 million. Yeah, it's a completely different scale altogether. Can you
right,
elaborate
right.
a little bit more on this topic of fairness in AI? This is an extremely interesting topic for me also as a researcher in that area. So, what motivated you to pick this direction? What kind of work do you do in that fairness in AI?
Definitely. So I think, as I've mentioned earlier, over the past at least a decade, the focus of the field, in my opinion, has been on how do we push for more accurate models, or how do we push for more efficient architectures. And I think we've made great progress along both those axes as a community. And very recently, over the past couple of years, there has been some work, mostly by other researchers, uh, which which look at uh, which study the same set of systems that we now have, but from an aspect of fairness and inclusion. So one work that really motivated me was from Dr. Joy and Dr. Timnit Gebru on studying how facial recognition systems perform very differently for people of darker skin tone versus compared to people of lighter skin tone, and how do these systems perform differently for people who identify themselves as women versus people who identify themselves as men. Um, there's another good example, which was work done by Ishan Mishra, who again is an alumni of IIIT and CVIT, along with his colleagues at Facebook. They had studied that object classification accuracy is dependent on the geographical location of the images and the income and the cultural context in which these images were taken. So I think those works of other researchers really motivated me to pick up this problem and study it more closely. And this is a relatively new problem space, as you know, and currently even benchmark datasets do not exist for us to study how good or bad the state of the art recognition models are. So at Facebook, started constructing internal benchmark datasets towards this goal. Our goal is to be able to understand if our current models perform fairly across different axes. One is the geographical axis that Ishan and others' work has mentioned, and the other is around physical appearance of people in the image. So it could be skin tone, it could be age groups, and it could be the gender of the person in the image or the video. So we've been gathering several internal datasets, benchmarking our models with the hopes to identify performance gaps and explore solutions. Both could be data centric or could be modeling based solutions to address these gaps.
Yeah, so fairness seems to be a very important aspect to you, both in terms of fairness across different categories and fairness of skin, and even your lab is named FAIR,
Yes.
research and research. So interesting.
Yes.
So where do you see this direction of fairness going in future? Like, is that do you think that this will become a very strong research area in future, or is it that you see some solutions that are coming up immediately which would probably solve this problem?
I think that this is one of the important directions where our field is headed. We are still in the very early stages, but I think there are more and more people understanding the importance of fairness or the lack of fairness in the existing not just computer vision models, but like language models and other forms of machine learning models. So I do believe that in the next 5 years, this is going to be one of the important spaces which will get a lot of attention and will get a lot of focused research. Uh, to your point, I do agree with you that I think we're still approaching fairness as an afterthought. So we have a state of the art ResNet model, and we want to study what its gaps are, and maybe just tweak the objective so that training objective so that it suppresses the one of the aspects of bias.
Mm-hmm.
So these are good initial steps to start, but I feel we should move towards more fundamental progress.
Yes.
And uh, the way we shifted from simple linear regressors to SVRs to deep nets, I think we need to take small steps towards more bigger changes in the space. And I'm hopeful that that will happen. Like, I think there is a lot more awareness now than there was 3 years ago. And I see that to continue.
Yeah, I think even the problem of fairness itself is not well defined. You, unlike accuracy, you don't have a good metric to measure what is fairness, because
Absolutely.
the number of dimensions are so different. Not very unlike the kind of research we are doing in terms of perceptual quality metrics, which again was not a very well defined uh,
Right.
problem in terms of what is perceptually good. So there seems to be some theme through your research problems that you are trying to pick up really difficult problems which are even not very well defined. That's very that's very brave of you. I tried trying to put some effort into this problem of perceptual image quality at some point, but did not pursue that as much as you did. That was a couple of decades ago, and then now I'm also working on problems related to fairness and privacy and so on. So yeah, it's extremely interesting to me as a researcher. Uh, so just to conclude this line of discussion, uh, you are working on these really hard problems. Do you have any dream problem in mind that you would like to solve in your career next few years or decades? I don't know what range you think.
Um, I think fairness and inclusivity in different facets of society also is something that I deeply believe in. I think most of my motivation comes from the fact that I think I'm aware that I'm very privileged to have the life that I have. So I do want to see if there is something that um, I could do for others who may not have had the same set of opportunities. So, with regards how that ties into research with respect to computer vision, is what fundamentally interests me is not work that is novel and that pushes the state of the art, but also has a positive impact on the community. So, uh, are these are these object recognition models top performing? Is the first question, but the follow-up question that interests me more is, are we making sure that these models are more inclusive? And same with the perceptual image quality predictor. I think it's great to build a top performing image quality predictor, but is that good enough? Or can we study how this could be applied uh, to build a more inclusive tool, say for visually challenged users who struggle with taking good quality pictures for their different kinds of applications? So uh, the applications which have positive impact have motivate me the most. So where I see myself maybe 5 to 10 years is I'd love for opportunities where I could apply some of these technical skills, um, not just towards building more inclusive models, but maybe around applications such as healthcare, which again hopefully could benefit someone rather than um, stop at pushing the literature, the state of the art.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe that was a roundabout answer
No,
for.
it's a very important area. Of course, it'll be good to have people like you work on these problems. So let me just switch track a little bit. Today being Women's Day, uh, how do you feel as a woman researcher? Are there any specific additional challenges that you have faced in terms of your workspace, home, in society, or nature of work that you do? Are there anything that you can point out which is specifically regarding as a woman researcher?
Um, so one thing that I've maybe touched upon earlier is just a decade ago not having enough confidence in me to take up the slightly more harder path of PhD. But I think there were several reasons that contributed to it. Maybe a few were related to my gender, maybe not. Um, but I feel overall I've been very fortunate to be in a work environment or in a university environment where, to my knowledge, my gender did not work against me. I was valued for my ideas and for my hard work more than irrespective of what gender I identify myself with. But I over the past 10 years, I've had a chance to interact with several women who face different kinds of challenges. So again, the my answer is probably a summary of everyone's experience, including mine, but not just me. Um, we do see significantly fewer women who are pursuing PhD or taking up uh, uh, roles in academia. And this problem, as you know, needs to be handled at a grassroots level, right from the high school, and having the right kind of role models, which is something that I can relate to. Um, I've seen cases where professors were not very comfortable in taking female PhD students for the fear that they might choose to have kids later on, which could impact their PhD journey. I've seen fewer women with kids at conferences just because they weren't able to arrange for childcare in time to take a week away from family and focus on conferences. Um, so for a fact that the career progression does slow down for a few months for women if they do decide to have children. So all of these, I think, are real challenges. Um, uh, but I think a lot has changed over the past few years. I see huge differences even in the environment a decade ago when I was a fresh graduate student and now, both in the increase in the number of students who are pursuing PhD, and increase in the number of new faculty who are women. Um, there are a lot more travel grants now to encourage women and underrepresented uh, people from underrepresented communities to attend conferences, which is great. And now there are workshops to connect with people of similar backgrounds, be it women in AI or Black in AI or Latino in AI, which is also very helpful. Um, Few conferences allow for childcare support, which again is fantastic, as it hopefully opens doors for more women if that is the reason that they are not able to attend. So overall, I think there are challenges, but there are also positive steps that are being taken as the research community. Um, so I'm I'm a lot more hopeful and optimistic that um, things will definitely get better. They'll continue to get better.
Yeah, at least in many places, it's the small things that actually, even small things actually do make a big difference. And I hope that as more women come into this decision making positions, they would see things that otherwise men like me, not necessarily because of malice, but because of our upbringing, we don't see sometimes problems which are could be easily solved with small efforts. But yeah, I'm happy to see that it's actually moving in the positive direction.
Yeah.
Any nuggets of wisdoms or advice for women in technology who want to pursue a career in that?
Um, let maybe repeat what I had said earlier is to cut out the noise, any form of negative noise, and focus on the signal, which is your dream and your passion, whatever that may be. Um, I just again from interacting with several people of different backgrounds, I do want to stress that it is okay to push back or challenge someone else's assumptions or expectations in any setting, professional setting. And it's okay to take a different path or a different viewpoint than a majority of people around you. What helped me a lot is to find good role models and and believing that if someone else could, then I also have a chance. So always having good role models or good mentors could help in figuring out any tricky situations. I think no one is alone in these kinds of struggles. I think everyone faces some kind of struggle or the other. So it's good to have a community to connect with, um, to derive some uh, emotional strength.
That's good. So to kind of conclude, do you have any other thoughts that you would like to share? Experiences, personal, professional, whatever it is that kind of made you who you are today? Anything that stands out you want to add to this?
uh, I think one question or one thing that I wanted to really say is how much just being part of Triple IT and being part of the research environment uh, shaped, I want to say, my entire future. Those 4 years were really instrumental in understanding that research is an option, and there is a career that you can make out of it. So I'm really grateful to have had the opportunity to be part of Triple IT for 4 years. And I think I can speak for almost every alumni here that our C, C++, and algorithm courses in the first 2 years, though were extremely brutal, and the assignments were painstakingly difficult. I think they helped us lay really good foundations for who we are, especially if someone is continuing to be in the software engineering or a research field. I think um, I'm confident that everyone is very grateful for the first 2 years of focus on early focus on programming, which yeah, overall, it's been a fantastic experience. Uh,
So that's a good segue into our last part of our discussion that we wanted to have about your life at IIIT. So, any standout memories within academics, outside academics when you were here?
I
What
think
what comes to your
even
mind first when you think of?
oh, I want to say Professor Jawhar's C++ or C assignments. I think there was an assignment every week. It was extremely challenging. I think uh, we we as a class shared a common problem that, oh my God, how do we get over this mountain every week? So even now, that memory does stand out. It was a good course. It was a difficult course. I very much enjoyed uh, Professor Kamal's and Professor Govindarajadu sir's classes as well. So uh, I think the idea of Jeevan Vidya, maybe it was at the time that I was part of the community, part of IIIT, was also very new to me. I feel I didn't fully grasp the value of it when I was 16 or 17 years old, but I think it makes a lot of sense now. So I think that's something that was also very valuable, like in the long term, even though we didn't realize the value when we were there.
So how do you think it's a I mean definitely as a triple IT, we try to push in all different dimensions as to how to equip our students to become leaders. And do you think any specific way in which triple IT helped you in preparing you for the future as to where your career currently is or going forward? Any
I think
thoughts?
the biggest was the exposure to research at such an early phase during the undergraduate studies. The way the curriculum was set up, where we had an option to choose which path to take right from our fourth semester um, was great. Uh, the way at the time the courses were structured such that you get a taste of every field in your fourth semester, and then you get to decide which path you want to take up. So that also was very helpful for me to get a sense of uh, what what is offered in the language processing field, for example, and what is offered in the general space of AI, what is offered in computer vision and graphics, and then make a choice as to what interests me the most. Um, so I would say that is something that really helped the way our curriculum was set up right from the get-go.
Okay, that's wonderful. So I would like to kind of wrap this up now and ask you, as looking back at your journey from as a student, as a kid to becoming a graduate student, from as a graduate of IIIT, then as a graduate student to now being part of one of the world's leading research groups in AI, in computer science. uh, how do you think your journey, uh, if you're looking back at the journey, what aspects do you think was kind of uh, really helped you in this whole process? If somebody else is aspiring to do that, as a specifically as a woman, we want to conclude with that as a woman who's aspiring to do bigger things in life, what can they take off from your experiences, your journey?
um, I want to say what helped me most at every step is having some sense of clarity as to what I liked and what I wanted to do next. Be it in at the end of the second year where taking up different courses, it was very clear to me that computer vision is something that that really interested me. And at the end of the fourth, end of uh, towards the end of my bachelor's, it was very clear to me that I wanted to pursue research and image processing. So that sense of clarity helped me throughout the process. And even when during the low points in PhD, the clarity that we're not here for this one project, we're here um, for the bigger goal of um, doing interesting things in the space, also was helpful. Both at IIIT and at UT and now at Facebook. I think another thing that really fuels this passion is the ability to work with really good colleagues. So I've had I think all of my batchmates are fantastic, and they're so talented in so many ways, and they've been successful in different um, um, forms of career. And I've had an opportunity to collaborate with some of them, a small fraction of them, through course projects or BTP projects or different kinds of projects that we take up. Um, it was very valuable to learn from others' perspectives and what they bring to the table. And I I realized that I really enjoy collaborations as through at IIIT by working in different course projects. So I would say definitely having clarity is great. Definitely work or interact with more people. It does bring different perspectives. It motivates you to do a lot more than what you may uh, set yourself up for. I think that at least that was the case with me everywhere, at every place that I've been, and focus on the signal. If there's a lot of noise, I think that irrespective of the gender, there is a lot of different forms of noise around us. So that's my mantra, just focus on the signal.
Spoken like an image processing person. Thank you, Deepti. It was really wonderful talking to you. It's always nice to see when your students go on and do good things in life, become successful. Especially true when for women. Wish you all the very best on this Women's Day. Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Thank you for
much
sharing
for
your
the
time.
no, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. Really enjoyed talking to you. Yeah, thanks again.
So yeah, hope to see you again soon in Triple IT and
Definitely,
in other events along with you. Okay. Thank you.
definitely. Okay,
And
thank you.
for all of you others, happy Women's Day.